If the grid goes down tonight, 99% of people are going to rush straight to Walmart to fistfight over bottled water and toilet paper. And honestly, they are going to get absolutely crushed. What they don't realize is that the most critical survival supplies, the things that will actually keep your family alive, warm, and sane, are sitting completely ignored under fluorescent lights just a few blocks away. For $1.25. You've been lied to by the survival industry. You do not need to drop $3,000 on military-grade tactical gear to keep your family safe during a winter storm, a hurricane, or a massive supply chain collapse. Look, in my 15 years of building emergency logistics and survival caches for hundreds of families, I've watched exactly how supply chains crack. I know precisely what vanishes from the shelves in the first 48 hours of a rolling blackout or a natural disaster. When panic buying hits, the big box stores are stripped bare in minutes. But the smart money, the people who actually ride out the storm comfortably, they are walking into Dollar Tree. I know this sounds crazy, but stick with me. By the time we get through this list, you are going to see your local dollar store in a completely different light. If you're suddenly realizing that your current emergency plan is basically just hoping for the best, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We don't do panic on this channel, we do practical preparation. Here is the secret the tactical gear companies don't want you to know. One of the most vital survival tools you can own is probably sitting in the Hispanic foods aisle or right next to the cheap party supplies. I'm talking about tall, glass prayer candles. Now, you might be asking yourself why you would buy cheap dollar store candles when you have fancy LED flashlights and lithium batteries. Think about it. When the power grid fails, batteries die. Solar chargers are useless if you are snowed in under heavy cloud cover for a week. But these cheap, unassuming glass candles? They will burn for up to 80 hours straight. But it gets better. Because they are encased in tall glass jars, they are incredibly safe. You don't have to worry about hot wax dripping all over your countertops, and the glass acts as a natural windbreak if you have a drafty room. In a freezing grid-down scenario, placing a few of these in a small, enclosed room can actually raise the ambient temperature just enough to keep the chill off. For a little over $1, you are buying nearly 4 days of uninterrupted, reliable light and heat. The second a heavy storm is forecasted, these glass candles are wiped out by the locals who know better. Do not wait for the storm tracker to hit your local news station. Stock up now. But lighting is only half the battle. What happens when the water stops running? People think starvation is the biggest threat during an emergency. It's not. The reality is far less glamorous. When sanitation systems fail and water gets contaminated, the real danger is infection and waterborne illness. Go straight to the pharmacy aisle at Dollar Tree. You are looking for 2 things that will literally save your life: generic Imodium, or any anti-diarrheal medication, and heavy-duty rubbing alcohol. Listen to this. In a crisis where you are forced to rely on stored water or filtered tap water, your stomach is going to take a hit. Dehydration from an upset stomach in a survival situation is a silent killer. Dollar Tree carries highly effective, reliable over-the-counter anti-diarrheal meds in small packs. You need a stockpile of these in your medical kit right now. When things go south, people realize they forgot this, and the pharmacy shelves are stripped bare in hours. And the rubbing alcohol? It is the ultimate multitasker. You need it to sanitize your hands when you can't wash them. You need it to sterilize tools. You can even use it as a makeshift accelerant to get a fire going in damp conditions. $1.25 for medical-grade sanitation is a steal, and I guarantee you, the supply of rubbing alcohol at your local store will vanish before you even get your shoes tied during a real panic. Now, Let's talk about something that hits a little closer to home, especially if you have kids. Imagine you are on day 4 of a power outage. The fridge is completely warm. The freezer is a puddle. All your perishables are garbage. You open your pantry, and you have dry cereal, but nothing to put on it. You need to walk over to the grocery aisle and load your cart with shelf-stable UHT milk. This isn't the powdered stuff that tastes like chalk and makes your kids gag. This is ultra-high temperature pasteurized milk. It comes in those cardboard cartons, usually over by the baking supplies or the juice boxes. As long as it stays sealed, it can sit on a dark pantry shelf at room temperature for up to a year. It is actual, real milk. It has the fat, the calcium, and the calories that your body is going to be screaming for when your diet suddenly shifts to dry rice and beans. The second a winter storm warning goes out, the dairy aisle at the grocery store is the first thing stripped to the bone. You won't find a single jug of milk within 50 miles. But the shelf-stable milk at Dollar Tree sits there, quietly waiting for the people who plan ahead. Buy a flat of it. Date it with a Sharpie. Rotate it into your normal cooking, and you will never have to worry about a milk shortage again. Which brings me to a harsh reality about survival food. People love to brag about their massive buckets of dried rice, beans, and oats. And don't get me wrong, those are essential calories. But you try feeding your family unseasoned, boiled white rice and plain black beans for 7 days straight. By day 3, appetite fatigue sets in. Your brain literally stops wanting to eat the food, even though your body is starving. It is a real psychological phenomenon, and it breaks morale faster than almost anything else. You need to go to the Dollar Tree spice aisle immediately. You are not just looking for salt and pepper. You need to hoard garlic powder, onion powder, taco seasoning, and most importantly, bouillon cubes. Chicken and beef bouillon cubes are the ultimate cheat code for emergency cooking. You drop one of those into a pot of plain, boring rice, and suddenly you have a rich, savory meal that your family will actually swallow. Spices have virtually zero expiration date if kept dry, and in a prolonged grid-down scenario, a bottle of garlic powder is going to hold massive barter value. We are just scratching the surface here, and the next few items on this list are things you probably throw away every single day without realizing they are critical survival tools. Let's head over to the hardware and craft aisle, because there is a tiny, unassuming item sitting on a pegboard right now that you absolutely need in your trauma kit. I am talking about standard, liquid super glue. Here is the reality of a true emergency. If you are clearing debris after a tornado, or just trying to board up windows before a hurricane, accidents happen. And when the hospitals are completely overwhelmed or the roads are entirely blocked, a deep laceration isn't just an inconvenience. It is a massive liability. You might be asking why you'd use craft glue on your skin. Cyanoacrylate, the main ingredient in super glue, was literally used by field medics in Vietnam to quickly close bleeding wounds when they couldn't stitch a soldier up immediately. Dollar Tree sells multi-packs of these tiny, single-use tubes. You want the single-use ones, not the big bottles that dry out after one use. If you get a clean cut, you can pinch it together and seal it with super glue to keep dirt out and stop the bleeding until you can get proper medical attention. These vanish instantly when people realize they don't have enough bandages. But it gets worse if you aren't paying attention to your water supply. Most preppers have a fancy water filter. That's great, until it clogs, freezes, or breaks. You need a chemical backup, and it is sitting right in the cleaning aisle. You need to buy plain, unscented liquid bleach. Do not buy the splashless kind. Do not buy the lavender-scented kind. You want the cheap, basic, plain bleach. In a total grid-down scenario where your municipal water is compromised and under a boil advisory, a few drops of regular bleach can purify a gallon of questionable water and kill the bacteria that will otherwise put you in the ground. Think about it. A tiny bottle from the dollar store can purify hundreds of gallons of drinking water. And because bleach naturally degrades and loses its potency over about 6 months, buying massive, expensive jugs from big box stores is a rookie mistake. Buying the smaller dollar store bottles allows you to cheaply rotate your stock so you always have fresh, potent water purification on hand. Which brings me to the absolute grossest part of survival that nobody on YouTube wants to talk about. Sanitation. When the power grid fails for more than a couple of days, the water pressure usually drops to 0. That means your toilets stop flushing. I want you to really picture what happens to a house with 4 people in it after 3 days of no flushing. It becomes a biological hazard zone. You need to walk into the household aisle and clear out their heavy-duty, black contractor trash bags. I am not talking about the flimsy white kitchen bags that rip when you look at them funny. I mean the thick, black bags. When the plumbing fails, you are going to be lining your dry toilet with these. You need bags thick enough to handle human waste without tearing, and you need enough of them to double bag everything and store it outside away from your living space to prevent dysentery and cholera. A box of thick trash bags from Dollar Tree is the absolute cheapest insurance policy against a localized plague in your own home. When a crisis hits, the sanitation aisle is empty in hours. Now, let's pivot to something that vanishes the second the power goes out, and it is usually sitting right at the checkout counter. Multi-packs of standard lighters. The survival industry makes an absolute fortune selling $30 magnesium fire starters and waterproof tactical matches. I own them. They're cool. But in a high-stress situation, when your hands are freezing and you just need to get your camp stove lit or a fire going to warm your kids, you do not want to be sparking a magnesium rod for 20 minutes. You want the convenience of a cheap, reliable butane lighter. For $1.25, you can get a 3-pack or a 4-pack of lighters. That is thousands of guaranteed flames. Throw a pack in your glove box, throw one in your kitchen drawer, and put 3 packs in your emergency bag. In a prolonged blackout, lighters become an incredibly high-value barter item. People will trade almost anything for a reliable way to make fire. And while you are thinking about heat and cooking, do not walk past the aluminum foil in the kitchen aisle. Foil is the ultimate survival multi-tool. If you are forced to cook over an open fire or a makeshift grill, you can use it to wrap your food and prevent cross-contamination. You can fold it into a makeshift cup to boil small amounts of water. You can even tape it to the wall behind those glass prayer candles we talked about earlier to reflect the light and heat back into the room, instantly doubling their efficiency. We are rounding the corner on this list, and the final items are the ones that separate the true survivors from the people who are just making it up as they go along. Let's jump right back into the health and beauty aisle, because there is a 2-part combination sitting on those shelves that big survival brands charge a massive premium for. I am talking about plain petroleum jelly and a pack of 100% cotton makeup rounds. Listen to this. When you are stuck in a freezing rainstorm or trying to get a fire going with damp wood, a regular lighter is not going to cut it by itself. You need a reliable, slow-burning tinder that can catch a spark and hold a flame long enough to dry out the kindling. The camping stores will sell you fancy, waterproof fire-starting cubes for $15 a pack. But here is the secret. If you take a cotton round and thoroughly rub a scoop of petroleum jelly into it, you have just created a completely waterproof, wind-resistant fire starter. It will catch a spark instantly and burn like a mini candle for nearly 10 minutes. For $2.50 at Dollar Tree, You can make hundreds of these. Stuff them into a Ziploc bag, throw them in your emergency kit, and you will never struggle to build a fire again. When a massive winter front rolls in, the camping aisle at the sporting goods store gets cleared out, but nobody even thinks to look at the baby care and cosmetics section. Now, I want you to picture the absolute most frustrating scenario imaginable. You actually did the right thing. You bought weeks' worth of canned chili, soup, and vegetables. The power goes out, the house is getting cold, and your family is hungry. You walk into the kitchen, grab a can of beef stew, and realize your electric can opener is completely dead. I know this sounds crazy, but stick with me. In my 15 years of consulting on emergency preparedness, I have literally watched people try to smash cans open with rocks, or butcher their expensive kitchen knives, simply because they forgot to buy a manual can opener. Do not be that person. Go to the kitchen gadget aisle at Dollar Tree and buy 3 manual can openers. Why 3? Because in a survival situation, 2 is 1, and 1 is none. Dollar store can openers aren't forged from titanium. They can get dull, or the gears can slip after heavy use. But at $1.25 each, you can afford to have multiple backups sitting in your drawer. It is the cheapest insurance policy for your food supply that you can possibly buy. Which brings us to the final item. And honestly, this is the biggest rookie mistake I see people make when they build their emergency pantry. You have gallons of stored water. That is fantastic. But plain, room temperature water gets incredibly difficult to drink after a few days, especially for kids. It is called water fatigue. Your body needs hydration, but your brain starts to reject the plain, stale taste of plastic stored water. You need to head over to the beverage aisle and stock up on electrolyte drink packets and flavored water enhancers. But it gets deeper than just taste. When you are highly stressed, working physically hard to clear debris, or sweating through a summer power outage without air conditioning, plain water is not enough. You are losing crucial sodium and potassium. Dropping a cheap electrolyte packet into your water bottle does 2 things. It instantly boosts morale by giving you something sweet and familiar to drink, and it prevents cramping and dangerous dehydration. It is a tiny, weightless prep that pays off massively when morale hits rock bottom. Look, building a bulletproof emergency stockpile doesn't require a second mortgage. It requires strategy. It requires looking at everyday items and understanding their true value when the system completely breaks down. The people who panic are the ones who wait for the news anchor to tell them it's time to worry. The people who survive, the ones who keep their families safe and comfortable, are the ones who quietly prepare right now. If this breakdown completely changed how you look at the dollar store, hit that like button and subscribe right now. We are going to keep exposing the truth about practical, no-nonsense preparedness every single week. Stay smart, stay safe, and get to the store before the shelves are empty.